Hey everyone, I'm just setting up some stuff here. Okay, hopefully that should be okay. Okay, thank you and welcome to this edition of the Office Hours. Last time we had just released 1.0, which is great. And of course, if people show up and ask questions, I'm happy to answer them. But I also wanted to take this time to just talk about doing some previews of the features that we've been working on over the last 2 weeks, and see what progress has been made. Unfortunately, I can't show you on any of the live servers because the various servers that I run, one of them you can't install Chromium, and I wanted to show some of the printing. So it's an old server. I do have a new server that runs this, but I don't really want to show the URL. It's a bit too public. So I'm going to show you some of the stuff of my locally running server, which I have here. So hopefully that's okay. I've got way too many computers in front of me. But let's get started and see what's been going on. So here I am running a up-to-date server. This is just the recently released 1.1.0 beta 9. I think we'll try to do these point releases with regular frequency. So I'll try to do these once a month, so you can expect 1.1.0 to be released sometime in mid December, about a month after the 1.0. Now remember, anything that says 1.1 is a beta release. It's not the sort of next. It's not a stable release. So all of these, even if they're not called beta, they will have some sort of development quality. Let me just show you how to upgrade and how to do this. So if I go to a different system, just hang on a second, just trying to get this set up. Okay, so if you go to a system that you're running, if you just do choose version, if you're on 1.0, it will probably stay on 1.0. But if you click here, choose version, then you can choose any version that's been released, but you can also look at tags here. And so the one you want to do is you want to go for next. Not quite sure why that's not tagged beta 9. I'll do that straight away after this video. Or you can also just choose it manually. There's a 9 here. So just a reminder here, if you choose latest here, you get the stable releases. Also, there's this stable 1.0, so if you want to stay on 1.0 forever, you choose that. Or you choose next if you want to go on to these sort of more experimental. I definitely do a backup before you do this. And then you can upgrade and see some of the things that I'll show you now. Oh, so we have the same sound problems. I'm really sorry about that. I forgot about that. I can't really fix it now. I'm gonna do some test live broadcasts during the week. This is really annoying. And try and figure out what's going on. I guess I could. You know what? Why don't I try? This is a nice microphone, so I don't know why it's not working. But let me just try and change microphone. So if we go with this microphone, is that? It's not as good of a microphone, but it's so that should. Yeah, so let me know, does that fix the problem? If you just let me know in the chat. If that fixes the problem, then we'll stay on that. Okay, so let's talk about what's changed since then. Okay, so there are a couple of settings, some things about security that you need to be aware of. So if you go to the wiki, I wrote a page about this. So this is a work in progress, so definitely have a look at this. So there's some security notes here, and so there's just some things that aren't really new settings, but you just need to be aware of them. So if you embed a view in a page, previously, you have the page permissions here, which is public or whatever, and then you have, that's worse. Okay. All right. Okay, so hopefully we're back now to the first one. Okay, so that doesn't fix the problem. I'll have to do some broadcasts during the week. I might make this a little bit shorter if it's really painful, because if you can't really hear me, it's not so useful. So let me just, I'll still try to answer any questions. Okay, so let's, so when you have a page, you have the page permissions, but then also if you have, if you have some view that you've embedded into this, that has its own permissions, which is here. So actually here, this sort of shows the problem. So this was, the minimum role was admin, and in this page is that's also public. So if we set this to admin, then to public, then we'll see the problem. So now currently you can, of course now I'm logged in as admin, but now previously we did not check these view permissions, right? So if you're embedding a view inside a page or inside a different view, then you won't get the it'll still show, so it won't really check those roles. So that is now being checked. It is currently being checked, and there's a warning. So for the first 1.1.0, like I wrote here, there will be a warning in the logs, but then that's going to change. Yeah, no, thanks, Mike. I will, yeah, I did actually do that. I just totally forgot about this problem. So I'll do some testing here during the week. Okay, so we have, so we're going to check these permissions. And the other thing is, if you have drop downs, again, that wasn't really changed. That wasn't really tested. So if you have a view where you have a drop down that's embedded, do I want to show this? Do I have anything where I can show it? Anyways, if you have a drop down in an edit, then it didn't really check whether you had access to read the table that supplied the contents of that drop down, and that's now fixed as well. So that is checked now. So you need to have read permissions to everything, every table that you use. Now, in addition to those, there are some new settings here. So some of these are quite important. You can increase the security. So for instance, if you set this same site to strict, then that does provide some protection against additional protection, and say we already have some protection built in against what's called cross script, I can't remember, CSRF, whatever that stands for. Some attacks that use cookies. This is like when people email you and you click a link in the email that can be interpreted as an action inside the app if that link goes into the app. So now, if you have same site, you can disable, your browser will provide some protection against that. You can also disable CORS now, cross-origin resource sharing, if people don't need to access your API remotely. And then this content security policy, that again is a instruction for your browser. Now definitely some things do break if you put this to enabled, and so we I think we will do. We're trying to fine-tune when you enable this content security policy, which we did not have before, that restricts some of the things you can do in a browser. And so we're trying to figure out, what is the rules that we need to make it bearable. And then maybe I did just disable and enabled here, so it could have been a Boolean, a checkbox, but there might be additional levels here where you can disable some things. So this is useful for security if you want to restrict some access to the system. Also, tenants are now you now get certificates for tenants. So if you have if you have these tenants, then you can you can now acquire. So on this server we're running with a wildcard domain, but with if you just have enabled Let's Encrypt, which you do somewhere over here. So we don't have Let's Encrypt, but if you have enabled Let's Encrypt, then, and if you create a new tenant, then basically on a new version, you will now acquire a certificate. That's the security settings. We have some new settings for webhooks. So I think we talked about this at one of the office hours. Somebody brought it up. So we now, let's call it fetch. I realize this should probably be called webhook fetch, but I think this is down at the bottom. So this now has some new, this is because I'm not on the latest. Okay, so I guess I can't show that, but that has some new settings here. You can set the method, you can set the authorization header, and something else that I've forgotten. Oh yeah, also importantly, you can set a field that you, oh wait, I can show this on the other one. I think I have this here. I think I was testing this, yeah, here. Here we go. So you can set the method, authorization header, and so of course you have a body if you have post. But now also importantly, you can set a field that the response should be put into. This can be either a string or JSON or an HTML field. And so that means that when you run this action on a row, then you will get the contents of the response will be put into that field. So that makes the fetch much more useful. So for get, you can now download the contents of a web page and put that in a field. I realize you can't see anything here. And so you can choose the field here, right? And the method here. So that just makes everything much more useful. You can actually use this to populate fields and get the HTML of websites. Okay, final thing that I will show you is if you now create a new, so just by default, a lot of fields we have moved to this having the button in the second column, which I just think all around looks better. So in the default, when you're creating a new view, the button is now in this column. Yeah, I think that's just all around looks better. So that button is now aligned with the fields, which are left aligned, unlike the labels, which are right aligned here. I think that does reflect best practices, and that has also been, in lots of forms by default. That is now, it looks a bit weird here on the when you have these accordions, but all around in the admin forms, whenever you need it. A save button. Let's see, can I find a save button? So here, again, here in admin forms, the save button is, when it's present, of course, most forms are autosave, but the save button here is aligned with the input fields. I do think that's a marginal improvement. And of course, in your views, you can always change that if you don't like it. Okay, that is the changes that we have in 1.1 so far. One thing that, and then there's been a couple of small bug fixes. One thing that I've been working on here is a couple of fixes around join fields. We have a new money type that's a plugin that you can install that sort of is quite useful for doing stuff with money. We have a couple of projects that use this. That you can sort of install this from, and that just revealed a couple of problems with getting stuff into join fields. Now, another thing that, sorry, when I said, so there are a couple of more issues. There are a couple of central areas of work here. So some of that, that's around printing. So some of that went into the module. So if you haven't already tried it, you know, our way of printing PDFs to PDFs goes through this module called Page to PDF, and we've had that for a long time. There's been a couple of improvements here. So you can now let's look at a page that has this. Yeah, this was the one I used. So let me just go through what those are. So there are a couple of problems with the page to PDF module. One is that you just didn't have enough fine control over the page, and that there were a couple of features lacking that needed some. Where you just needed to get better control over the layout. And just some features from standard document types that weren't really present. So that was one problem. And the other problem is it was just too hard to use. So it was just, I kept on having to explain to people how to get it right. So a lot of that came around this idea of the, that we were insisting on printing pages. And then yet, what do you do when you're printing a specific row, because a page doesn't necessarily have a specific row. And the way we specified that was that there were these state variables that you had to list that here. So very often you had to type ID here. Okay. Now, there's now a different option. So if you are in pages, you can only print pages. But if you are in views, let's see, this is my all around very messy view. If you're in a view here, then you have an additional option, which is to print a view. And then you can choose any view on the same page, including the one you're currently on. And that way, it's just printing the row that you're currently showing. So that just makes it quite a lot easier to show what you don't have to worry about the state transfer and stuff. You're just showing the current row in that view. So you can choose the current view that you're currently on, or a different view on the same table. I think I did want some other options. Sorry, no, I'm just obscuring things here. I did want some other options here. I thought about putting in the current URL, so that's like 0 configuration, just print the current page that you're on, or page, whatever it is, page or view. And I did also want sort of just an external URL, or maybe just any URL on your site. But there was just a small snag there. I needed some information, like you need some kind of default name, and that's difficult to get if it's a URL or even the current URL. So it was just a little bit harder to implement, so I just stopped here with this. So that just makes it a lot easier, right? So if you're confused about getting the right information onto your page, just switch to view and just pick the current view you're on, or another view on the same table, and that fixes all that problem about how do you get the current row to show. That's one change. Second change is you can now do images. So you can now do, I wanted to have, I think somebody else wanted more formats here, and we will put those in. They're very easy to add here. There's just like one line in the code to give an option to do like A5, A3, maybe B5 as well. So we'll probably add some more formats here, but they're just still PDFs. But you can now choose images, right? So you can now, and that you can choose a, thanks, we're getting a question here about printing, so I'll answer that when I'm going through the new issues here. So if you're printing an image, there's no margin or something. You have to do that yourself, but you can choose a CSS selector, so that if you don't choose anything here, that's your whole page will be shown. But if you choose something here, then you can show a specific card or something like that. So just put in, you can put in a class. So if I wanted to only show one card here, just put in, my card here as a class, and then here you have to do a dot in front, so that we can even try this. So now it's thinking away. Huh. I guess that's not working for some reason. Okay, I'll have to figure out why that is. Alright, that's not working. See, still work in progress here. Let's see if anything is working or I've messed up totally. Okay, that's working. Alright, so the images are broken. I must have done something wrong. Okay, but it did work. I'll fix whatever I've broken. So you can, in principle, choose PNG, JPEG, and WebP images. Okay, the other thing here is that we have set the header. So this was really important for professional quality documents. And you can now pick another view or page that will act as the header. So I guess we will see that now. So here, let's see this here. So if we're printing this, yeah, so I have, these are not in that view. They are other views on that, what are those called, something like show short. So there's another view on that same table. But I can also do a page, so I can select, I'm going to switch off my image. I can also select a page as my header and my footer. And the other thing is the footer here, in this case, is not positioned correctly on the last page, which in this case, the first page is also the last because there's not very much content. But on the last page, the footer is not positioned correctly until unless you set the footer height. And in case, you have to know what it is. Right, so let's set this to 2 centimeters. So now that footer is now positioned correctly. So that 2 centimeters is inside the margin. This was extremely difficult to implement. We've been talking about this forever, but finally I found a great blog post about this. Yeah, this is a great blog post. Covered what the what the implementation strategy is, and that's basically what we did. Okay, so okay. That is pretty much, you can also get page numbers now. There's an option at the bottom. The other thing that we've done is a lot of settings now have you can now have settings here can now be in centimeters, so that just helps. And you can also, if you're in a container, you can have, where is it? You can choose this static relative absolute positioning, which helps you if you want to put some box somewhere in a specific spot on the page. And so then you can choose things in centimeters, choose the offset here. All right, maybe I've been going on for long enough. Oh, one last thing here. If you do a break here, that can now be a page break. So that helps again with printing. So all around, I think we got some really good improvements with the printing, and you can now produce, I've seen some very good documents, something like invoices. Let me go to the question. Is it possible to print a page without opening it? Example software generates 1,000 invoices and sends them by email as attachments. Yes, that is possible. What you do is you choose save to file. Then you choose file name, but actually you probably want to do this in a workflow, right? So let's come up with, no workflow, we don't have workflows yet. Workflows will come, but you probably want to do it in trigger. So let's come up with an example. Let's say I want to print whenever a new user is or whenever a new entry, okay, whenever there's an insert, let's do it here on the books table, which is my sort of very standard table I used to practice on. I want to create a new PDF for book. What you do is set page to PDF as the action. And then, okay, so you want a page that shows things. You can also do view here. So let's do what we did before. Yeah. I don't know why we got that error. And you want to do save to file. And then you want to choose some file name that's distinctive. And here you can use interpolations. Book. So we could use the ID. So now you get a number after book. Or you could do, if you have a name. Okay. And now that's basically it. Right? I want to do all this other stuff. Should we do it? I was testing all this stuff, so things look a little bit confusing here. Okay, that looks more like it. Let's try this. Okay, so now I'm claiming, okay, cannot convert. Okay, so there are some issues here. Cannot convert undefined. I don't know what that is, but I probably have some view setting here, or maybe something is wrong. But that is in principle how you would do it. You would set up an insert or some other kind of trigger on a page. I assume that wasn't printed. That's why I got an error. Sorry. Yeah, I don't think that was printed. But you do something like that. I'm gonna go through afterwards and see what went wrong there. But that's basically what you do. And just do a file to this is page to PDF in a trigger. Okay. So that's basically it. So that's what we have done. So some changes and a lot of support for printing, both in core Saltcorn and in the PDF module. That is pretty much what has been going on. If there are any more questions, please ask. Otherwise, I might drop off here and try and fix. I know that the sound now is better, but I need to try and figure out how to make it better reliably. So I promise that before the next office hours, I will try and fix this sound issue. I guess I could just try and see why this isn't working. Do I feel tempted to do that? This is too complicated right now. I don't much want to try and debug that live. But if it's a bug, I'll fix it. And if it's not, if it's an issue, then it's just some issue that has gone wrong. Question about leaflet plugin. Okay, go ahead, Mike. While you're asking your question about leaflet plugin, let me just install it. Any way to set the zoom of a map? I haven't used this for a long time. Let's build a small map. Shops. Name. That. Oh, sorry, that should be an A. Float. Longitude. I think we're on 51. 0. I think that's Greenwich, maybe, more or less. 51.151, and I have no idea what that is. Okay, let's make a map. Leaflet map. Okay, longitude. I guess there isn't any way to set the zoom. Oh, okay, that's somewhere else, and it wasn't near Greenwich. So wait, but isn't it adaptive? Let's try and make it adaptive. I just want to do 2 settings. Let's do a category. Okay. My guess is that that one was in the sea. That one's on land. I'm gonna add another one that's presumably also on land. Okay, and then I'm gonna add a filter. Sometimes when you press the button twice, this happens. Okay, so, and I will drag in the view. Okay. Okay, so now that seems to be adaptive. So Mike's set something, right? So you see how if I have all, that one is really, so here, you know, again, I'm more zoomed in. Okay, what does Max say? It's adaptive, but if I only have one coordinate, then zoomed in maximum amount. Yes, I see that, because very often you only do have one coordinate, right? So if you have a shop, and if you want to, if you want to show where this shop is on a map, so let me see how bad is this actually. So if I have only one, I can't see how zoomed in it is on the map, but if I delete one land, yeah, see, this is quite zoomed in. Yeah, no, there is no way, I think. Should we have a look? Okay. I'm just looking at the code here and seeing. Oops. Seeing where the zoom is set. That's the initial position. Fit bounds. Okay, so I don't actually hard code that, but I assume that's set in leaflet, and we could do something about that. My guess is that what you want is you want something that's more zoomed out, right? So yeah, we don't currently have a setting for that, but that could potentially be added. It looks like it's not. I'll have to read through the, you know, this call here. This is where the initial zoom is set, and the problem is here that if it only gets 1 point, it doesn't know what it is. So you may want we may need to have an option. I have to read about this API and see what you can do if there's only 1 point and what their default is in leaflet maps, and how to see if we can do anything about that. So let me read about that afterwards. Okay. Thanks. If there are no other questions, then I think I will drop off. Thanks for showing up, and let me try and solve these issues around the sound and stuff like that, so it works. So if you see some test, I think I can do some not public YouTube streams, and I can test it there. But if you see some, it's probably me testing during the week, and we can. And I also had some issues with, you know, different servers not having the right versions and stuff. So I'll try and fix that. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll try and do this again in about